If you want to win more Deadlock games, improving your early game is one of the most important things you can do. Also referred to as the laning stage, Deadlock's first 10 minutes set you up for success, and there's a ton of things you can do to gain an edge during this period of the game. In this video, I'm going to cover everything I've learned about the early game. If you don't know me, I'm Deathy. I've been playing Deadlock since May 2024 with over 4,000 hours in the game, multiple tournament participations, and I've consistently been a top 50 player in North America. I'll start with the most obvious laning advice because it's the one that people need to hear very often. In lane, you should be aggressive. Aggression is generally rewarded in Deadlock, and in general, aggression is a catalyst for improvement. What that means is that someone who plays 100 lanes aggressively will improve faster than someone who plays 100 lanes passively. Don't forget to use your abilities. There is no mana cost, so if you don't use them, you're missing out on damage. As a rule of thumb, you want to push the wave into the enemy tower. However, make sure you kill the healing trooper last. It heals you for a percentage of your missing health, meaning keeping it alive longer rewards aggression. Pushing the wave in general gives you a few advantages. While the enemy is under their tower, you can poke them with your gun or abilities, you can try to deny souls from them, or you can steal some of their resources. For example, you might be able to take their small camp or their boxes on their side of the map. It also gives you the option to gank. Simply put, pushing the wave gives you agency, meaning you have more control over the decisions you can make when the wave is at the enemy tower. Since I recommend aggression, I'll tell you a very simple system to favor good trades. A good trade, by my definition, means that you come out of the engagement in better relative condition than your opponents. This can mean that you have more souls, more health, or something else, more cooldowns, whatever benefits you. Generally speaking, troopers should serve as a general guide for you to trade with your opponent. I like to think of troopers as a traffic light. It can be green, yellow, or red. I'll give you 3 examples. In the first example, let's say that you have more troopers than the enemy team. Let's say you have 4 and they have 2. Take a fight with the enemies, they will have to retreat as they are at risk of taking large amounts of damage from the troopers. Very often, when I coach people, troopers are the #1 source of damage taken during the laning stage. I would call this situation a green light. You should look for fights if you have more troopers than they do. In the second example, all troopers are alive, so both teams have 4 troopers. This is how the lane starts. Take a fight in this situation, the troopers are not giving an advantage to either team. This means you should only fight if you believe you have another advantage. For example, let's say your gun has a higher base DPS than the enemy heroes. This situation is a yellow light. I would encourage you to still try to take fights in this scenario so you can learn the limits of different heroes and what's possible versus what's not possible. In the third example, you have less troopers than the enemy team. Let's say you have 2 troopers and they have 4. Take a fight, most likely you will take significant amounts of trooper damage. This situation is a red light. You should really only take a fight if you have an overwhelming advantage. For example, if the enemy is so low that you can kill them instantly with your abilities or gun. Once you improve and understand the interactions around the trooper, you'll find that the system itself can be abused to surprise players. For example, if the enemy player is in a green or yellow light situation, it often can give them a false sense of security. This can be abused by going for a quick surprise attack that they might not expect. However, don't overthink it. Deadlock games are usually won by having good fundamentals, not by making flashy, unexpected plays. An important aspect of the lane that is often forgotten is positioning. Since Deadlock is a MOBA and a shooter, aspects of positioning from both game genres apply. From the MOBA side, you want to position yourself in a way where the enemy can't easily hit you and your troopers or teammates with their abilities. You don't want to stack up on top of each other. For example, if you're playing against a Kelvin, you don't want his grenade to hit both you and your teammate or you and a bunch of troopers. You want to make it so that the enemy hero has to choose between hitting one of you or the troopers. This makes it more difficult for them to easily push the wave towards your tower. From the shooter side, it's important to use cover and play to the strengths of your weapon. For instance, Abrams is a shotgun hero, which means he should play around tight corners and abuse the veils in the lanes. On the contrary, heroes like Haze or Vindicta heavily benefit from open sidelines and will often look to secure the bridge so they can pressure their opponents. When you enter a lane, think of your weapon's effective range and do the same for your opponent. If you're playing Haze into Pocket, Abrams, Shiv, or any shotgun hero, avoid contesting them at close range. Instead, you'll want to abuse the bridge and stay away from the veils. Comparison I often give for those of you coming from a tactical shooter like Counter-Strike or even Overwatch players is if you're going long on Dust 2, would you just swing with a Glock against the opponent, holding the angle knowing they had an AWP, right? You wouldn't swing an AWP if you just had a pistol. if you were playing Counter-Strike. Unless you're a little bit unhinged, which, hey, look, I respect that. Now, swap the AWP for a Widowmaker versus a Pharah, and the example is similar. You just gotta know the matchups and know how effective your gun is at similar ranges. Positioning in the laning stage could have its own entire video, but these concepts are a great start. I'll add stamina management to the list. This is particularly important if you're in a lane where you may need to make a quick escape from certain abilities. Against Warden, for example, you want to avoid getting low on stamina if you know he has Cage and Flask. Buying extra stamina is a great tip to help out against those heroes. If you'd like more tips for laning against specific heroes, I made a video about that, link in the description. We've talked about troopers, we've discussed how you should position, and it all feeds into the concept of taking positive trades. Troopers and positioning play a big part, but how should you approach the idea of trading? Well, there's a good amount of heroes, items, and skill levels in the game, so I can't explain each scenario to you. I can, however, tell you how to improve your own analysis of your laning stage. When you load into a lane, look at the heroes you're going against. What are their main threats, ability-wise? What are their base stats, mainly HP, regen, and the DPS of their gun? The most important thing is to form a theory of how you should want to approach the lane. Heroes with long cooldowns, like Abrams, generally have large openings during which an offensive trade with them may be beneficial for you. A hero like Pocket, who starts with negative spirit resist, is naturally vulnerable to spirit damage, and you should focus your abilities on them. I could go down the list, but just try to think about what abilities they need to use for you to be able to fight them. You might be able to fight them all the time if it's a good matchup. The idea here is to build up your subconscious into automating these thoughts and understanding what criteria need to be present for you to take a positive trade against the enemy heroes. If you mindlessly play thousands of games, you will also develop the skill, but focused practice will help you hone this much faster. Most of you probably have jobs, so you don't have time to play thousands of games, so this will help you really fast. Just get a theory of how you should play the lane and then apply it. Before we get any further in the video, I'd like to just do a quick intermission to talk about Death Slam Academy, which has been a project of mine that I've been doing with PoshiPop for the last couple of months. If you guys would like to improve your Deadlock gameplay, you can consider joining. It is a paid community and it helps me pay the bills as well as do content. In this community, you can hope to find coaching VODs, you can find lessons, we have weekly events, and basically, I think it's just the place to be if you're trying to become a better Deadlock player. Now, don't want to pay for anything, then keep watching the rest of this video. Thank you so much. Now, playing to your items is an extremely important concept in MOBAs. I'm not going to discuss itemization at length. I would say if you don't know what you're doing, following a build is going to be your best bet. However, I will add one thing. You should play to your item's strengths. For instance, if you buy extra regen, but you're constantly full health, you need to fight more. If you bought monster rounds, but all you're doing is shooting heroes, you should have bought something else. If you bought headshot booster or restorative shot, you should look to use the effect of these items the moment they're off cooldown. Just ask yourself, what is this item good at? Then try to do more of that. The simple mindset change will help you get the most value out of the build that you're using. Now, there's a lot of types of heroes in Deadlock, and it's extremely hard to categorize heroes in such a diverse game. But doing so may be helpful to some of you, help you think about heroes in a specific way. I'm not going to be making a list because heroes get rebalanced and categories change, but I'll give a few examples. Keep in mind that some heroes might not fit in these categories, or some heroes might actually be part of multiple of these categories. The first type of hero is the sustain hero. The heroes that showcase this the most are Abrams and Moan Krill, having natural sustain baked into their kit. These heroes can afford to take what might seem like a negative trade. For example, dealing 100 damage but taking 150 damage in exchange, because they will heal a lot more than their opponent. Typically, these heroes benefit from wars of attrition and want to constantly be trading damage as long as it's not a very unfavorable engagement. Second type of hero is the burst hero. The heroes that showcase this the most would be heroes like Pocket or Lash. They output a large amount of burst damage through their abilities, but typically don't want to take prolonged engagements. These heroes usually are strong in the laning stage due to the short time window of most engagements. They usually want to take short engagements when their abilities are available and tend to play slightly a bit more passive when they're on cooldown. The third type of the hero is the poke hero. The most iconic poke hero would be either Haze or Mirage, as they both have a build-up mechanic that increases their damage as they keep shooting you with their gun. They benefit from long engagements and they want to constantly shoot the enemy heroes. This is a very diminishing and simplistic view of the cast of Deadlock heroes, and like I said, some heroes don't fall into any of these categories or multiple. For example, Mina could be considered both a burst and a sustain hero. I just want you to think a little bit about what the type of hero that you're playing against wants to do so that you can try to adapt your playstyle against it, and also what your own hero benefits from. They're just a guardrail, not a Bible. Now let's talk about advantage state. So in a lane in general, you're going to be either in an advantage state or in a disadvantage state, which is meaning you're either going to be winning or losing. In an advantage state, usually you're going to be having the wave pushed at their tower most of the time. In this situation, you have 4 options, right? You can try to kill them by either poking them or diving. You can try to deny souls from them, right? By going for denies. You can try to steal their resources, their small camp or their boxes, or you can gank another lane. Now, if you're at lower ranks and if you have good aim, going for denies is great. What I'd recommend is just feel it out, right? How much is the enemy letting you deny them? If they're letting you deny them a lot, then going for denies is a great option. But you'll find that as you rank up, denies get very difficult to obtain. Therefore, you should adjust your priorities and opt for the other options. If you can ever kill your opponent, that should be your default option. However, I very often see the mistake of people trying to kill each other for 10 minutes without either side making significant progress. If you don't feel like you can kill your opponent by poking or diving them, I highly encourage you to either steal some of their resources after clearing the wave, or to go gank another lane if your hero is good at it. Stealing boxes or a camp can lead into a few hundred soul lead, and that lead can cause you to get your timings quicker than your opponent. For example, if you get your ultimate one wave before your opponent, that can give you a huge opportunity to kill them and get an even bigger lead. Any action is better than no action is the main point I want to get across. If you're not sure what to do while in an advantage state, try going for any of the options I listed earlier and see what happens. Now, you might be in a disadvantage lane because, of course, you're not going to win every lane, particularly if your opponent's also applying the principles at play here. So what do you do when the wave is constantly at your tower and you're getting pressured? The first thing to understand is that the priority should be to avoid feeding. Now, while 1 or 2 deaths in the laning stage is not a big deal, if you die 3 or 4 times, it'll be difficult to come back into the game, as the soul disparity between you and the enemy laners will start becoming a little bit problematic. Instead, you should focus on trying to prevent the opponents from doing some of the actions explained earlier. For example, securing your own boxes or your small camp the moment they spawn so they can't steal it can be a great course of action. Similarly, if you see your opponent trying to gank, one of you should match the rotation to ensure your nearby lane doesn't just lose instantly. In order to avoid dying a lot, consider buying defensive items that allow you to regen or kill the wave quickly, such as monster rounds, extra regen, or healing right. Also, don't be afraid of going back to base, especially right after the wave died. In most situations, losing 1 to 2 troopers worth of souls is completely fine, as long as you come back with full health. This is especially true past 6 minutes, as you can use your zipline speed boost to reset very quickly and won't lose anything in return. Let's talk about tower resistances for a second. Towers have resistance that gets reduced as the game progresses. The towers in this game are called guardians. The exact percentages don't matter, and they'll probably get changed in the future, so I'm not even going to talk about them. The key takeaway is that as of this current patch, your tower will pretty much never die before 4 minutes. It's almost impossible, unless you're against very specific heroes like McGinnis and you're losing the lane really hard. This means that before 4 minutes, you can do boxes, you can gank, or do whatever you'd like, and let the wave crash into your tower if you're either in a neutral lane or in a losing lane. This also means that later, around 8 to 10 minutes, the tower dies very quickly, and you can kill them even without having a wave there. Now, let's move on to timings. Timings are one of the final important concepts of the laning stage. In the laning stage, there's a few important moments. The first one is the 2 minutes. At 2 minutes, the boxes and the small camps spawn. This is one of the first opportunities you get to generate a lead over your opponent. As highlighted in the previous segment, steal the enemy's resources if you're in a winning position, and attempt to secure yours if you're in a losing position. This will be true for most timings that relate to objectives. However, there is another type of timing, which is often referred to as power spikes. In the lane, your biggest spikes are usually ability related, and that is what we will cover primarily, as they are much more universal than item power spikes. Most heroes in the game tend to rush 2 points in one specific ability. That requires a total of 3 ability points, often referred to as AP, which is acquired at 2,800 souls currently. This is one of the main power spikes in lane for most heroes, and you should be very aware of this timing. If you hit it before your opponents, you usually can take advantage of it for 1 wave, and if your opponents hit it before you, make sure you play more passively until you get it yourself. Same can be said for the ultimate ability unlock spike, which occurs at 3,600 souls. 5 minutes, the buffs spawn. This is an opportunity to fight. If you're currently strong, you definitely want to go to the buffs right away. If you're low rank, usually just going to the buffs as they spawn can almost guarantee you get it, and it's a significant advantage over your opponents. At 6 minutes, the medium camps spawn. These are another great thing to do in between waves. If you can't kill your opponent or take their tower, try to take one of their camps instead. If you can't do that either, you should try to do your own in between waves. Now, 8 minutes is arguably one of the most important timings in the early game, as the Sinner sacrifices, or some people call them the slot machines or the vaults, spawn. These are worth around 350 souls, or about one wave of troopers. This is a very rough math. This is not actually, factually correct, so don't fact check me on this, but this is a rough idea of how much they're worth. And they also give you bonus stats if you do the last hit at the correct timing. These are an incredible way to generate lead from both souls and stats, and you should look to secure them as fast as possible. Previous logic applies. Steal enemy Sinners if you're ahead. If you're not ahead, try to secure your own. Now, finally, at 10 minutes, the buffs spawn again, the urn appears along mid-boss, and officially, the early game, aka the laning stage, has ended. If you're interested in improving your mid game, I'll be making a guide on that very soon. Stay tuned. For now, you can watch my old video called The 3 Pillars of Macro, which covers topics that are still extremely relevant today, and pretty much nothing has changed. There are some things that have changed slightly, but the concepts at play are still 100% accurate, so I'd highly recommend giving that a watch. Link will be in the description. For now, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.